know that the new CDC prevalence numbers came out last week, and the new numbers are 1 in 59. And we've all had an opportunity to have our emotions about it and, you know, to read the report and see the nuances of it. And for those of you who aren't as familiar with CDC prevalence numbers, let me just say that the very way that they measure them, when you understand it, you go, I don't think that's really indicative maybe of what's happening, right? But it is the way that they have been doing it, and we need to judge apples to apples to apples, not suddenly change the formula and judge apples to oranges. But the CDC only comes out with these numbers every 2 years, and what they look at are the number of 8-year-olds from a significant portion earlier. So we're really looking back in time and saying that the number of 8-year-olds that have autism during a specific year that is not this year is this. That's what we're looking at. It's not about how many kids are on the spectrum. We're just looking at 8-year-olds. And we're not looking at 8-year-olds in 2018. In fact, I think we're looking at 8-year-olds in 2014, which is when the last numbers came out. Okay, so you purely are looking and saying, if we're looking at the same criteria, what is the difference? Well, since 2007, we have seen a jump of 1 in 50 to 1 in 59. If you want to go back further in time, when I was at AutismFest the other night, Matt Asner was talking about when his brother was diagnosed, that it was 1 in 10,000 children. Just 20 years ago. So, you know, we're seeing an increase. And it is maddening to me when people carte blanche poo-poo this and say it's just better diagnosis. I'm referring to an article that's in Vox this week that is written by one of the most prolific self-advocates and one of the co-founders of the Self-Advocate Network. And again, I encourage him to have the loudest mouthpiece that he can have and speak his truth and speak his opinion. I'm going to use mine here. And say that this article, and I encourage you all to go and read it and support him in his efforts and stating his opinion, but see if it makes sense to you, that he says the numbers are, he says, the title of it is CDC just announced 1 in 59 children are autistic. Here's why that's not evidence of an epidemic. Now, I thought that and I thought, oh, okay, so are we going to hear about the definition of the word epidemic? Because we had a little discussion here a couple of weeks ago about the actual definition of epidemic, which autism would not apply because autism is not contagious. And nobody is arguing that it's contagious, right? So it does not apply for the term epidemic, but you can say that we are seeing an epidemic-like rise in autism. And anybody who denies that, I just don't, honestly, that to me feels like denial. And then he goes on to say the subtitle is, especially within minority groups, parents and doctors are getting better at identifying the condition. And this really is the thing that the CDC really brought home in their report. They're like, look at this. We're seeing an increase. How's this for salesmanship? We're seeing an increase in the number of diagnoses from individuals who are from the Latino community and from the African American community. So see, we're getting better at diagnosing it. Let's all pat ourselves on the back because probably this whole time, those kids were there and had it anyway, and now we're just diagnosing it better. So really we're saying that all along, even when it was 1 in 10,000, it was really 1 in 59. Although not really, because we're saying it's still not even. And we're seeing more girls on the spectrum. Eventually, what? Eventually, we're going to get to the point where there are the exact number of people who are Latino who are diagnosed as are Caucasian, and then we'll go, oh, now we've got the numbers, and it was this way at the turn of the century. Really? Is that really honestly what you believe? I mean, I do believe that diagnosis has gotten better. I absolutely do. But you really believe that there are that many people, because these children that are being diagnosed, you have to realize that there are a high percentage of them that when they're being diagnosed are nonverbal. They're not staying nonverbal. And are you really saying that it's just, are you suggesting that all the people that were there before that had it that weren't diagnosed, they were all really high functioning, and that now we're having more people who are not as high functioning? I don't get it. I really don't get where this denial comes from. But I think reading this article, one of the things that he explains is that likely autism is somewhere between 1 to 3% of the population. Okay, I think that would be shocking to a lot of people. I don't think that very many people have thought in terms of 1 to 3 as we are now approaching the 2% mark. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And his argument is you got to stop saying that it's an epidemic because somehow that equals a vaccine discussion. And this is where he loses me entirely. Why does that necessarily follow? To me, it does not. We can be having a rise in autism without it being something to, the first time I'm seeing somebody equate this to vaccines is his article. Just saying. Why is that the discussion? Is it not possible that there could be a rise in autism and have it be something else? Is that not a possibility? I think this saying, no, it's just been this way forever and denying the numbers, to me, that's really scary. But his point is, if the rate of autism has long been stable, that it's always been 1 to 3%, the 1 in 10,000 number, because people were really misdiagnosing. He says, if the rate of autism has long been stable, policymakers and funders should rethink the public response to autism. Well, I agree with you there. He goes on to say, if rates are increasing, it follows that there are fewer autistic adults relative to the number of children. So he's saying there are less adults and there are more children if it's increasing. And if it's not increasing, if it's long been stable, then there are more adults, and so more services should go towards adults. And that's, I think, where we've hit it, because adults have long not had the resources that kids have had. That is the truth. And I agree with that, and I think that there needs to be more support for adults. But you see the argument here, I think we're fighting against each other. And he takes on autism groups in a way that I take issue with. I take issue with. Read it, see what you guys think. But if that's the argument, perhaps you would get more traction if you would say, well, if we're saying that 1 in 59 children are on the autism spectrum, guess what's going to happen to those children? They grow into adults. So let's get the adult services in place right now. We both want the same thing. It's just that we're arguing about it in different ways. And you go through here to give lots of examples of why you don't think that the autism number is rising, but I really take issue with this idea that now suddenly there's better diagnosis for individuals who are in these underserved populations, and so we're solving this. What if there are even more that aren't being diagnosed? What if the actual truth is that there is a higher prevalence among the African American population and the Latino population, because there's reason to suspect that there might be? What if that is the truth? Then that skews your whole number. And the truth is that nobody knows. Nobody knows. And to suggest that we do, I think, is disappointing.